The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey! Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. It is Thursday, May 29th, 2014, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us for today's program, and just program reminder notes for those who might have missed them yesterday. We're going to be going through some changes next week on the Russ Belville Show. We're celebrating our second anniversary on the internet, interwebs, intertubes. I don't know what I was going to say. Celebrating our second anniversary, and we're going to tighten things up a bit. We're aiming the show to get it on more networks and more outlets. So we're going to be moving our daily Toker Tunes segment to the second hour in Toker Talk Radio and discontinuing Toker Talk Radio as a podcast. You'll only be able to get it as a live replay on the 420 Radio Network. And that's just something we have to do because they don't have the same licensing everywhere else, and we want to get this show on as many outlets as possible. That means an expanded news segment. We're going to move it from 6 minutes to 12 minutes, and we'll continue to do our behind the headlines, our interviews, and our radical rants. So not a whole lot of change, but just a little bit of format change, plus a little shorter commercial breaks. We're going to shorten a lot of these commercials, get everyone down to 30 seconds, and give you more of what you listen to the Russ Belville Show for. Including on today's show, we've got our Cops Say Legalize Drugs segment, where a guest from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition joins us. We've got retired prison guard Anthony Cincotti joining us. He was a prison guard in Lovelock, Nevada, a place I almost wrecked outside of one time in a blizzard. We'll talk to him and ask why he thinks we need to end drug prohibition. Also, the people behind the No on Question 2, the Don't Let Florida Go to Pot campaign, are claiming that less than 5% of medical marijuana patients use it for cancer or AIDS. We're going to take a look at that in the Radical Rant. We'll get into the statistics behind the medical marijuana states that do keep pretty good records on such a thing, and just show you how true or false that statement actually is. Also, today we had Governor Mark Dayton sign Minnesota's stupid medical marijuana law, the first no-plant medical marijuana law in the United States. We'll give you a breakdown on that and how it incentivizes patients to be criminals. We've also got our 420 Radio News and our last segment of Groovin' Thursday with Chuck Diesel in this hour. Again, next week it'll be at 420 where you get your daily Toker Tunes breaks. The news is next. I'm Radical Russ. We'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the best way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com. 420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you don't just want any attorney. You want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Lauren Vasquez knows the details of California marijuana law from both a personal and professional angle. Lauren Vasquez rose from the ranks of college normal activist to become one of the Bay Area's best marijuana lawyers. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com. The number again is 855-MMJ-LAWS, 855-665-5297 for your fired-up lawyer, Lauren Vasquez. Lauren Vasquez is an activist attorney you can trust. Call today.
This is your 420 Radio News for Thursday, May 29th, 2014. I'm Russ Belville. Governor Mark Dayton has signed a bill making Minnesota the 22nd state to provide protection from arrest and prosecution for adults who use cannabis products as medicine. The state's law is the first to prevent patients from accessing the raw marijuana plant and the first to forbid any smoking of marijuana. Patients will only be able to use pills, vaporized oils, and oil extracts with a doctor's recommendation. The law establishes 2 manufacturers and 8 dispensaries statewide. We'll bring you more details about the Minnesota medical marijuana program in our Behind the Headlines segment. Hoping to push the Assembly and Senate to compromise and make New York the 23rd medical marijuana state, the Marijuana Policy Project has released 2 television ads directed at state officials. In this first ad, Marijuana Policy Project focuses on Governor Andrew Cuomo, who prefers an unworkable plan to use a dormant 1980 law to create research studies of medical cannabis. We'll show you that ad right now.
My wife is 46 years old, and she's a fairly advanced stage of Parkinson's disease. She's having a very difficult time, pretty much wheelchair bound now. If Joan tried marijuana now, she might have a tremendous improvement in her quality of life. Knowing there's a medication that could help my wife, but that medication is illegal here in New York, is agonizing. It's causing me a tremendous amount of grief. Governor Cuomo, patients have waited long enough for relief. Please support the Compassionate Care Act.
In this second ad, MPP focuses on the Republican Senate leader, Dean Skelos.
Oliver had a brainstem injury. As a result of that, he has a lot of complex medical conditions, including refractory seizures. Medical marijuana is helping so many children just like Oliver. Why can we not get access to that medicine to give my son the same hope and the same chance for life? Senator Skelos, please don't make us wait another year. Allow a vote on the Compassionate Care Act.
Lawmakers in Delaware have proposed making legal the personal possession and use of up to 1 ounce of marijuana in private. Democrat Representative Helene Keeley's bill would amend Delaware law so that, quote, no penalty may be imposed upon a person 21 years of age or older, end quote, who possesses an ounce or less, except for a civil infraction and $100 fine for using cannabis in a public place. Current Delaware law treats possession of an ounce or less as a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in jail and fines of up to $1,150. Selling, trafficking, and growing marijuana will still remain crimes, begging the question whether Delaware is proposing either the weakest legalization law or the strongest decriminalization law. Officials at the Denver airport claim their ban on marijuana is working. Since the airport began banning marijuana in January, officials say just 10 people have been stopped by TSA for trying to bring marijuana through security. None of those caught were cited and all cooperated with police and disposed of their marijuana. Denver City Councilman Christopher Herndon told the Denver Post, quote, "It seems people are complying," end quote. Airport officials estimate some 25 million passengers will travel through the airport in the first 6 months of this year. However, nobody will offer any estimates of how many passengers have just successfully brought marijuana with them through the airport without TSA noticing. The Securities and Exchange Commission has halted the trade of 8 cannabis stocks on the over-the-counter bulletin board. These stocks, commonly called penny stocks, sold on the pink sheets, have tumbled. The 420 Marijuana Index, an analysis of popular cannabis stock, has dropped 62% versus its peak value in March. Analysts say the so-called pot-com bubble that inflated beginning in January on the news of Colorado's recreational market legalization has deflated. The SEC halted trade in stocks like Grow Life, Advanced Cannabis Solutions, and Canavest, issuing warnings about, quote, manipulative transactions and, quote, unlawful distribution of securities, end quote. Grow Life is down 88% since March, and Canavest, once traded at $201, is now sitting at less than $19 a share, and Vape Holdings has dropped from $41.25 down to $1.87 per share. This is your 420 Radio News for Thursday, May 29th, 2014. I'm Russ Belville. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available from our website at 420radio.org. Just click the logo to take you to the archives. When we come back, we'll go behind the headlines and take a look at Minnesota's new no plant, no smoking medical marijuana law. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back. Hey, tokers and tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED Lighting. You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up! Welcome back. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And today we're taking a look at Minnesota's no plant medical marijuana law, or as I like to refer to it, the stupid medical marijuana law they just passed in Minnesota. And I don't mean that necessarily to demean anyone who's going to gain some value from this thing, but it's just the latest example of what I've called the Box Canyon theory for years now, as to just how low the bar can be set before a state becomes a medical marijuana state. Now, in this case, Minnesota's Governor Mark Dayton has signed this law, and it's the first medical marijuana bill that forbids patients any access to the actual marijuana plant. Actual marijuana plant not allowed. But we're going to call it a medical marijuana state, I guess. Registered patients in the Minnesota program will only be allowed to access pills, vaporized oil, and oil extracts from cannabis plants. And smoking cannabis is strictly forbidden. Not that the patients can get any cannabis to smoke anyway. Now, this, of course, has drawn the ire of me and other activists and lots of the patients who've been lobbying at the Capitol for medical marijuana, who now say the program will not meet their needs. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune talked to a patient named Patrick McClellan, and Mr. McClellan said, quote, "I think I'm going to have to stick with my current arrangement." Now, that current arrangement, of course, is buying marijuana illegally on the black market. Patrick currently uses cannabis buds that he purchases illegally. He vaporizes them to treat his muscular dystrophy pain. And he's afraid that if he has to use hash oil instead of bud, it's going to be too potent for him. He says, quote, "I would get stoned out of my mind. Patients don't want to be high. We just want to treat our symptoms," end quote. Well, in an interesting little twist, thanks to this new medical marijuana law, Patrick and others like him who prefer flower are actually incentivized not to register for the medical marijuana program. They're actually incentivized by this law to remain criminals. Here's how. Check this out. Minnesota is one of the decriminalization states where the possession of less than 42.5 grams of usable marijuana, that's, about an ounce and a half, a little less than an ounce and a half, 42.5 grams of usable marijuana by adults is just a petty misdemeanor with no arrest or jail time and a maximum $200 fine. But if that adult registers for the Minnesota medical marijuana program and then is caught with any amount of usable marijuana, they can be jailed for 90 days. They can be fined $1,000 and, of course, kicked out of the medical marijuana program. Well, that's enough to persuade Patrick McClellan and a whole bunch of other patients who were out there at the State House day after day. Even some of these who lobbied the governor personally for medical marijuana are now refusing to sign up for the program. Patrick says, quote, "If I were to get into this program and I get the oil and it's way too powerful, and then I decide to go back to leaf, I could be prosecuted," end quote. Wow. And Minnesota's governor, of course, is bragging about how his state is creating the tightest, most restrictive medical marijuana program in the nation. I keep hearing that over and over. Illinois, they bragged about, Lou Lang, it's going to be the most tightest, most restrictive medical marijuana law in the nation. Minnesota is going to be the tightest, most restrictive medical marijuana law. Out there in Albany in New York, they're arguing, ours is even going to be stricter and more tight, more restrictive. That's the direction medical marijuana is going in this country. And Governor Dayton said he would not sign any bill unless he felt it had the support of law enforcement. And law enforcement, of course, was opposed to any access to the marijuana plant or any sort of marijuana smoking. And Governor Dayton, in a written statement, said, quote, "I pray it will bring to the victims of ravaging illnesses the relief they are hoping for," end quote. Well, not all ravaging illnesses, you see. First of all, those victims will be forced to seek non-plant forms of relief from just 8 dispensaries statewide. And we're talking about a state that has about 87,000 square miles of area. It's the 12th largest state in the nation. The program expects to have cannabis products available from just 2 manufacturers and have them available by mid-2015. So let's hope that some of those victims of ravaging illnesses can make it until mid-2015. But again, not all ravaging illnesses. You only qualify with these conditions in Minnesota. Cancer, but not any old cancer. It has to be cancer that causes pain, nausea, or cachexia. Glaucoma, HIV/AIDS, Tourette's syndrome, Lou Gehrig's disease, seizures like epilepsy, spasms like multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, and terminal illness. But not any old terminal illness, only a terminal illness that causes pain, nausea, or cachexia. We wouldn't want some of those everyday average cancer and terminal illness patients having non-plant access to extracts and oils now, would we? It's just getting more and more ridiculous. New York State's talking about having it just be a 90-day recommendation. You'd have to go see your pot doc every 3 months. That's how restrictive they're getting. They're taking glaucoma out because the ophthalmologist said, well, there's better drugs for that, aka drugs that we can make money on. With marijuana doesn't have to be the best drug. Sometimes it's the best drug because it's the cheapest drug. Oh, we'll be right back.
Marijuana, do you wanna? Mary, do you wanna tonight?
As marijuana goes mainstream, you need to be armed with the facts. Nobody can teach you better than Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D. You may know Dr. Mitch from his column in High Times magazine or his weekly appearance on the Russ Belville Show. Dr. Mitch is also the author of some of the best books on marijuana science, culture, history, and health, including Understanding Marijuana, Parents' Guide to Marijuana, Pot Politics, and more. Visit Amazon.com and search for Mitch Earlywine, that's EARLEYWINE, and order your books today. You can also contact Dr. Mitch by email at 420research@gmail.com.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Still don't get it, do you? Alright, let me make this as clear as I possibly can. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in Pod Say 420 music from around the web. Today is Groovin' Thursday, featuring rap, hip-hop, soul, and funk music. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
Welcome back, everybody. 24 after the hour, and well, I don't have any tune or contact from our Chuck Diesel today, and I think I may have gotten him confused with the time change that's happening for the Daily Toker Tunes. I hope he's not waiting to call in an hour. That doesn't happen until next week. But in the meantime, I'm going to have to make do with one of my favorite tunes that I haven't heard enough of in the past 6 or 7 months. We're just going to turn things over and groove with George Clinton and the U.S. Customs Coast Guard Dog. Yo-ho! Doing the doggy style. U.S.
custom Coast Guard dope dog, nickname Buster. Like most dope sniffing dogs, he's got a habit, trained to have it. Pick up the tracks of the traffickers, track them like a rabbit up the coastline. Canine, controlled substance retriever, receiver of the golden nose award for leading to the cash, cashing in on the stash. Now he's in line for his issue of the booty. Never do he do a line in the line of duty, he's a dope dog. U.S. Custom Coast Guard dope dog, keen sense of smell, tracking the telltale trails of cartel dope boats. Big dope, never a gram of OZ, kilo, too low key. Gotta be tons of P-blow, bells of lumbo, while other dogs sniffing one another's tails. He can track the profits from a dope sale straight to the stink account. Big banks, banking on launder dirty money, not stinking. He follow his nose, and as the wind blows, he get a whip, he take a sniff. A dope dog. Uncle had some drugs, C-I-A-I-O. And with those drugs he bought some arms, C-I-A-I-O. It was a bang bang here and a snort snort there. Here bang, there snort, bang and snorts everywhere. Omac Uncle starts a war, C-I-A-I-O. But the war on drugs is hell on a dope dog nose. It smells where the nose goes. When the doors close and the dealer wanna hide the dope in the booty, in the twat, then it's got to make the dog sniff it foul, foul as they fart in his face. Damn, for a shitty half gram. Dope dog. U.S. Custom Coast Guard dope dog, nickname Bustum. Like most dope sniffing dogs, he's got a habit, trained to have it. Pick up the tracks of the traffickers, track them like a rabbit up the coastline. Canine control substance retriever, receiver of the Golden Nose Award.
Out of the toxic waste comes a fox that wastes no time. A genetically improved smell capability. The long and wagging tales of the possibility of clone canine. Conceived under the influence of toxic wasted doctors, computer bugs, debugging devices, and vice versa, and various viruses. And until his retirement, no mention, no requirement, nowhere in his pension for the upkeep, the keeping up of the habit. The system have a habit of making sure you get a habit that can't be kept up with unless you're a dope dog.
A dope dog, an undercover knock with a bark. He took a bite out of crime, posing as a CNI dog. He bit the blind. The man with the cane made a coat. Sure as the dope boats float, the media goes comatose. Unrelated over-the-counter overdose, now become drug-related, aided and abetted by a lot of apprehension and indifference. The bigger the headache, the bigger the pill. Take your medicine, cause you're gonna be ill. When I tell you the deal on dope, there's more profit in pretending that we're stopping it than selling it. Selling out, we're in for the shock of a lifetime. Stopping, we might find faces in prime time, and faces of yours and mine. Over the counter, under the counter, on account of the drugs. It's not the drugs that drag you through the mud. It's the money, it ain't funny.
Oh, my uncle has a bank. Drugs are sure to flow. B-C-C-I-C-I-A-D-E-A-I-O.
U.S. Custom Coast Guard dope dog, the nickname Bustum. Like most dope sniffing dogs, gotta have it, trained to have the habit. Pick up the tracks of the traffickers, track them like a rabbit up the coastline. Canine, control substance retriever, receiver of the Golden Nose Award. For leading to the cash, cashing in on the stash. Now he's in line for his issue of the booty. Never do a line in the line of duty, he's a dope dog. He can smell the cargo on the boats and planes and trains and things. He can smell the cargo on boats and planes and trains and things.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420.
In the afternoon, if I'm home,
I smoke marijuana.
You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Oh, marijuana. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I got my ganja.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Gordon Green's Music Planet, the best of eclectic world music, every Wednesday at 5 and 8 Pacific on 420radio.org.
One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message: Cops Say Legalize Drugs.
Welcome back, everybody. It's 32 after the hour, and I just had Anthony on the line, and he dropped off. Sometimes they hear the theme, and they don't know what's going on. So calling him back right now, but Anthony Cincotti, can you hear me, Anthony?
Hello,
it's Russ Belville.
Anthony.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Anthony. It's Radical Russ here from the Russ Belville Show.
How you doing, Russ?
I'm doing fantastic. Just calling you for our segment here today on Cops Say Legalize Drugs, and we're glad to have you on the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so I was looking at your background, and it says here that you're a retired prison guard, worked out of the prison there in Lovelock, Nevada. And just personal note, I once almost wrecked my car in a blizzard outside of Lovelock, so I kind of know the area. What attracted you to that job, and how did you end up in Nevada?
Well, I moved to Lake Tahoe when I was 20 and went and did the ski bum thing for a few years. And I was bouncing at a nightclub, and one of the guys that I worked with had gotten a job down at the prison. And he had talked me into it over a period of a year, nagging me to go in and apply for a job, and I did. And I was as surprised as anybody else when they hired me. You know, my whole family always said that they knew I'd end up in prison. They just didn't think I'd have the keys.
There you go. So you end up as a correctional officer at the Lovelock Correctional Center, and it says here, you did that for 13 years? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow. Okay, so in those 13 years, you must have seen a lot of people come and go and come back again. What did that teach you as far as how we're incarcerating people in this country?
Well, you know, it was pretty obvious right from the gate. I mean, you see these usually young kids come in. They look like they're completely out of their element. They're in there for something simple like possession, which could happen to pretty much anybody's kid. I mean, let's face it, there's probably not too many percentage of people out there that at one time or another have not tried something illegal. And all it takes is getting caught doing that one time to have your entire life destroyed. And then they get in there, and of course, prison is also known as con college because you get these low offenders in, and then they learn from the more advanced offenders. And then get back out on the street, and now we deny them student aid, so they can't get any federal student aid. It's more difficult to get a job. I mean, if you come out with a felony on your record, that's one of the first things they ask in any job interview or application that the guy's going to be filling out. So we're pretty much relegating these people into a continued life of crime, and for no societal benefit. We're not getting any benefit out of the war on drugs.
You know, I'm glad you bring that up because it would seem to me that probably a lot of the prisoners you saw, maybe even a majority, were there for some sort of either direct violation in the war on drugs or indirect, you know, violating probation or something like that. Do you have any estimates of how many of the prisoners you dealt with were drug related in some way?
Well, in our facility, it's probably pretty close to what the national average is. Roughly 40-some-odd% of the people that are incarcerated are in there for non-violent drug offenses. So we're taking up valuable bed space at the tune of anywhere from $17,000 to $30,000 a year, depending on the custody level and what state you're in, and housing these people that are in there for what's essentially not a crime. I mean, the only reason that what they're in there is a crime is because we say so. There's no victim except for the person that's supposedly perpetrating this crime. And so we're locking up these people, and then we're letting out murderers and rapists and child molesters early because we don't have bed space. It just makes no sense to me.
Well, that was something I wanted to get to was, you know, we talk a lot on this show about the impact of a marijuana arrest and, you know, jail time on someone, how that impacts their school, their future, their job prospects. But I've often thought about how it affects actual crime, real bad guys. And you mentioned that one point of, you know, letting these guys out early because, well, they don't have mandatory minimums like the drug offenders do. Are there any other aspects where the war on drugs is really causing more harm in these respects?
Well, there's so many aspects. I mean, we could go into that for the entire length of your show. But one real big one that's really telling is our overall national homicide clearance rate. In the 1960s, prior to Nixon escalating the war on drugs and us diverting all of our law enforcement energy and effort towards drug interdiction and combating a war against our own people, our homicide clearance rate was in the 90s. I want to say like 92%. I'm just pulling these numbers off the top of my head, so forgive me if I'm slightly off. As of the most recent numbers that I saw in 2010, that had dropped to 63%. And that's in the face of all these massive advances in investigative techniques, forensics technology. We have all these new tools at our arsenal to catch murderers, and we're catching less of them than we were prior because we're diverting so much energy on persecuting the war on a plant.
How about in the prisons themselves? I would imagine that things like overcrowding are an issue that can make the violent offenders more violent and more risky to the guards and the other inmates.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, you tax people in, you know, to a situation like that, and then you have anger and aggression to begin with. Some people that are in there are mentally unstable. Some people are just violent psychopaths. You know, there's a whole spectrum of people in there. Well, when you crowd them all together, it's just like a bunch of different tinder, and the crowding is the match that lights it on fire. You know, it's just, you can't pack that much people together with that much negative energy and not expect some type of reaction. Overcrowding, though, I mean, that's really one of the smaller side effects of it. I mean, it's terrible. It sucks that we have that in our system. But we're killing innocent people on the streets, too, in these drug raids and whatnot. I mean, you read at least a couple a year, 3 or 4 a year sometimes. The cops come kicking in the door at 6 o'clock in the morning on a drug raid, shoot the homeowner or shoot their dog, and then don't find any drugs in the house. You know, there's so many terrible things that just come out of prohibition that, you know, it's tough to know where to start, what to start addressing it. But the answer is so simple: end prohibition. It took us 13 years to figure out that prohibition did not work and was a terrible idea when we tried it with alcohol. And now with drugs, it's been 7 or 8 decades, and we're still not learning the lesson.
You know, I often think that perhaps that lesson's harder to learn when all the violence or a lot of the violence is outsourced to Mexico and there's fewer users that people directly see. Maybe that keeping those aspects hidden have allowed this prohibition to go on longer. As we talk about this, and again, we're talking with Anthony Cincotti, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, Anthony Cincotti from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and encourage you to check out leap.cc on the web or copssaylegalizedrugs.com. Either way, you'll find Leap. They've got all sorts of great speakers from all sorts of backgrounds in law enforcement, prisons, and so forth. And in that respect, I wanted to talk to you about an aspect of this. And I don't know if Lovelock was a public or a private prison, but we now have this aspect of prisons for profit. We have corporations, the Corrections Corporation of America, that have shareholders that profit the more we keep those prisons packed. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah, we fought against them. They were our natural enemy because I worked in state prison, and they did flirt with them in Nevada for a minute. They at one point transferred the female prison down south near Vegas into a private correctional facility. And after a couple of years of that experiment, they went back to state-run because it was costing them so much more money, not just in overhead and costs, but lawsuit settlements, because the female inmates getting pregnant by staffers. Now that's a ward of the state. The taxpayer's paying for that kid all the way up till 24, or whatever, if they go to college. Pardon me. It's so much more nefarious than that, too. It's not just the private corrections companies that are fighting against ending this flawed social policy. It's companies out there like rehabs. The opposition loves to tout how many people check into marijuana, or check into rehabs for marijuana when arguing the pro-medical marijuana legalization, or just the general legalization of marijuana like we did in Colorado and Washington and whatnot. And I kind of derailed there.
Oh no, I understand. They always want to crow about how many people they get into rehab. Of course, that's really easy. When you're caught with marijuana, you're sentenced to rehab. I mean, how many people would be in alcohol rehab? If we caught them with a sip of beer and we sentenced them to AA, we'd have a whole lot more people in alcohol rehab too.
And drug testing as well. If you get caught, say, with a marijuana possession, you have to go and get drug tested every week out of your own expense and paying it to a private corporation. Matter of fact, one of the only major financial donors to the No on 2 campaign, Amendment 2 is the medical marijuana ballot initiative that we have going on down here in Florida right now. The only real financial contributor they have is a guy that owns drug testing clinics and rehab clinics.
That's right. Mel Sembler with Save Our Society from Drugs. I follow the Florida news too. So you're, where are you, Coral Gables, is that right?
Cape Coral.
Cape Coral. I knew there was some coral in there somewhere. How did you get from Nevada to Florida?
Well, I retired from the department after a injury to my spinal cord prevented me from being able to retain my status as a peace officer. And that is one of the reasons why I became an activist for the medical marijuana issue. I had about a year and a half of going to tons and tons of doctors. They had me on 20 milligrams of oxycodone every 4 hours. I was taking OxyContin for breakthrough pain, Dilaudid, muscle relaxers, antispasmodics, and then anti-nausea medications to keep me from throwing them up, and other pills to offset the other side effects, and nothing was working. So I went and I saw a doctor one day, and he was looking at the list and was upset about how little effect I was getting out of how many medications they were pumping into me, and asked me if I'd considered trying medical marijuana. Well, at this point, I hadn't fully retired from the department yet. I was in the process of being medically discharged. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at the doctor and said, no, considering what I do for a living, I haven't. And that was when he pretty much informed me that no doctor would ever sign off on a release to full duty, so I might as well give it a shot. And in a matter of weeks, I went from being unable to leave the couch to being able to play darts with my friends, which was, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you spend a year and change trapped to a piece of furniture, it feels like an amazing accomplishment. And not only was I able to do that, I was able to do that and eliminate virtually all of the other medications that I was on and reduce the oxycodone dosage from 20 every 4 to 10 every 6. And after about 45 days, I eliminated them almost entirely.
Wow, that is fantastic news. Our studio likes it too. That's fantastic news, and I've heard that from so many people. I love hearing it from someone former law enforcement, because now you've got the perspective a lot of people have been trying to get across to law enforcement for years when they oppose these medical marijuana bills. It must make you mad when you hear these sheriffs down in Florida fighting against Question 2.
It makes me mad, but I totally understand why they're doing it. They can't possibly be as ignorant as they would need to be to believe what they're saying. So it's just...
Well, now we are talking Florida cops now.
Hey, yeah. If she said, but I would like to clarify, though, it's surprising how many law enforcement officers have the same viewpoint as most of us in Leeds do, but they can't freely speak out about it because to do so is career suicide.
Yep.
So it's not a fringe question, even amongst law enforcement. If anything, it's probably more prevalently discussed there because they see it every day. They see they're arresting the same people or people off the same corner, every single day. It just doesn't end. You pop one drug dealer, there's a line of 50 guys waiting to take that spot because the profits are just too high.
That's right. That's right. Well, Anthony Cincotti from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, you're doing great work, and keep advocating down there in Florida for Question 2. And folks, if you want to get a speaker like Anthony, just go to leap.cc and they'll get you set up with someone who's going to be great, just like Anthony. Thanks for joining us, and good luck on that amendment vote.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. When we come back, we will have time for a little bit of a radical rant. We're going to take a look at the claims. Speaking of Florida, we're going to take a look at the claims by the Florida sheriffs that less than 5% of medical marijuana patients in the other states are getting it for cancer and AIDS. The rest of those folks, they must be faking their Crohn's disease and their chronic pain and their intractable nausea. I don't know. We'll figure all that out when we come back.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Cast your eyes up to the skies. What is it to live and die?
New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions in law enforcement resources. We believe it's time for a new approach on marijuana, and that Oregonians deserve a chance to decide in the 2014 general election. Our approach will regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana for adults in Oregon. By implementing a strict system to regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana, we can move Oregon forward and create new revenue for critical services. Under our approach for 2014, 40% of funds would support K-12 education, 20% would support mental health and treatment services, and 15% would be dedicated to law enforcement. Public opinion, coupled with victories in Washington and Colorado, confirms marijuana legalization is inevitable. Visit our website at newapproachoregon.com or our page on Facebook at New Approach Oregon. Thank you. 420 Radio, your ticket to the High Times Cannabis Cups.
Maybe you heard just a little crack is okay. Maybe you heard cocaine can't really hurt you. Well, you heard wrong. There's no home run on cocaine. You get me? Are you listening? Just a little bit of crack or cocaine can be addictive or even kill you. That's the real truth. The lie is, it's the other guy who's going to die.
Cocaine, the big lie. Call 1-800-662-HELP. Furnished by Major League Baseball in cooperation with the U.S. Department.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gum. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk and do it all over.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
Don't Let Florida Go to Pot is the name of the coalition that supposedly contains 62 some odd groups that are fighting against Question 2 in Florida. Question 2, of course, is their amendment that needs 60% of the vote that would legalize medical use of cannabis for any condition a doctor believes it would outweigh the health risks. There's also a long condition list, but that's really the important part right there. And so basically, the two groups behind this are the Florida sheriffs and this Save Our Society from Drugs. That's Mel Sembler's group. Mel Sembler is the former kingpin of Straight Inc. You can Google Straight Inc. and learn all sorts of things that they did to young kids in the name of rehab. And also now a current rehab owner, entrepreneur type drug testing guy. So it's in his best interest that as many people that can be busted for pot as possible continue to get busted for pot. So I saw this news item out of PolitiFact. Now, PolitiFact is one of those watchdog groups that judges the accuracy or truth of a particular statement in politics. And they'll go all the way from, your pants on fire, totally lying to, absolutely honest Abe, right? And anything in between. So the latest statement they wanted to take a look at PolitiFact came from the Don't Let Florida Go to Pot website. And it's the statement that less than 5% of registered users in states allowing medical marijuana have cancer or AIDS. Now, what they're trying to do here is they're trying to play this game where they paint us activists in medical marijuana as saying that that we're pushing the cancer and AIDS patients, right? That we're playing on the public's heart by bringing forth the most sick and disabled people, the cancer and the AIDS patients, and that that what really we're doing is we're playing a bait and switch, right? That somehow we're using the cancer and AIDS patients to bait and switch the public into voting for medical marijuana that they believe will be issued for things that aren't on the qualifying condition lists, like chronic pain or muscle spasms. Well, before I attack that part, the actual statement of the 5% cancer AIDS thing, let's attack the basis of it in the first place. The basis of the scare is that somehow if you don't have anything, if you have something less than the most serious cancer and AIDS, then you are not deserving of medical cannabis. That's the foundation of this scare to the people of Florida is that somehow people who aren't worthy will be using medical marijuana. Well, there's a whole lot of things that are even in the Florida amendment, even in its qualifying condition list, that aren't cancer and AIDS. Lou Gehrig's disease, to take care of Kathy Jordan down there, right? Glaucoma, all sorts of things that are in their list that aren't cancer or AIDS. So it's already a disingenuous statement right there from these Florida sheriffs to say that people wouldn't understand that medical marijuana was for something other than cancer and AIDS when it's right there in the amendment, right? It's not like the people are being fooled into voting for something that just says cancer and AIDS, but then behind the scenes it's really something else. It's quite clear that what it would be for in the Florida amendment, and the people of Florida are quite aware of what medical marijuana is, and not just in Florida. They've got 20 other states to look at, 21, whatever, however you want to count it. So they know that there's people with epilepsy that use medical marijuana. They know there's people with multiple sclerosis who use medical marijuana. They know there's people with chronic nausea or severe pain that use medical marijuana. So it's a little late now to play this game of the cancer and AIDS. You're trying to fool us with the cancer and AIDS patients 18 years into medical marijuana. That might have been a reasonable scare in 1997. But after all of these states have passed medical marijuana and the general public has seen that, oh yeah, it's not just for cancer and AIDS anymore. It's for chronic pain. It's for nausea. Then it's a little ridiculous for you to go back to the 20th century for your scare stories, Florida sheriffs. And it also diminishes, of course, chronic pain. It diminishes how many people out there are suffering in pain and are downing Tylenols and Advils and ibuprofens and naproxens and even stronger drugs, oxycodones, Dilaudids, fentanyls, muscle relaxers, all trying to cope with pain. And we want to just diminish that medical marijuana could help that? Do the Florida sheriffs recognize what state they're in? And have they ever heard of a pill mill? Florida is awash in OxyContin and hydrocodone from these pill mills treating people for their pain. You don't want to support an alternative to that, Florida sheriffs? You'd rather have the OxyContin running around, I guess. All right, so that's just the foundation of this, is ridiculous and rotten to its core in the first place. So now that we've taken care of that, let's get to the actual data, the actual number. They say less than 5% of registered users in states allowing medical marijuana have cancer or AIDS. Now, when PolitiFact, drilled down on them, they found that they got it from the Sheriff's Association. And that came from Save Our Society from Drugs. And what they did is they took a look at the 15 states that have registries of some sort and got their numbers from there. But the problem is, all 15 states don't count their registries the same way, and they don't all they don't register patients the same way, and some of them aren't very timely about updating their numbers. Some of their programs are so small, like you got a Vermont or in Alaska where there's a few hundred or maybe 1,000 patients, where it's not statistically significant. So I decided to take a look. You know me, because I look shit up. I decided to take a look at the actual statistics on medical marijuana states. And I'll switch you over here to video for a second, and we'll get the mouse pointer up. And so this is a list, a spreadsheet that I built of the qualifying conditions for medical marijuana in a particular state. And I decided to take a look at Oregon, Colorado, Montana, Nevada, Michigan, and Rhode Island, because those 6 states are very good about posting their data. They've got pretty accurate and reliable data that they update either annually or quarterly. And what we found here, I've highlighted in yellow, cancer, glaucoma, and AIDS. Now, this was from a previous thing I had done, so we'll forget about the glaucoma for a second. And these percentages you see for these states are the percentages of the conditions that are treated. So 3.1% in Oregon represents the number of conditions that are cancer. Because in Oregon, people can register for more than one condition, a fact that's shown by the fact we have 91,000 patients, or I'm sorry, 60,000 patients, but 91,000 conditions. So that's the first thing you have to understand when we're looking at these medical marijuana states registries. Some states only count one condition. Other states count multiple conditions. So it's hard to get an apples to apples comparison from state to state. But as we look, indeed, it looks like they may be right. It seems pretty low, the number of cancer patients. In Colorado is 2.1% of their conditions. In Montana, they group together cancer, glaucoma, and AIDS all together. It's 5.8% of their conditions. In Nevada, it's 2.2 and 0.7% of all conditions. In Michigan, it's 2.1 and 0.5% of all conditions. And in Rhode Island, 4.4% for cancer and 1.8% for HIV/AIDS of their conditions. So if you were just to take those numbers, it would seem like these Florida guys are right. Less than 5% of the conditions treated under medical marijuana are cancer or AIDS. But of course, you know that is some sort of numerical prestidigitation, shall we say. They're not giving you the correct calculations. Because again, we're talking about the percentages of the number of total conditions, not the total number of patients. When we look at total number of patients, and I came up with a number that was cancer and HIV/AIDS only, in Oregon, 5.9% of patients are registered for cancer and AIDS. In Montana, 6.6% for cancer and AIDS. In Rhode Island, 10.3% for cancer and AIDS. So of the 6 states that do accurate record keeping on their condition lists, half of them have more than 5% that are cancer or AIDS. just to add to that, New Mexico, which does its enrollments a little bit differently, it only counts one condition. 9.6% of their patients are there for cancer and AIDS. That's all the time we got here for Hour 1, but stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. For everyone here at 420 Radio, I'm Radical Russ, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you